Seafood HACCP course presentation presented by David L.A. Rawson, SafeFoodTest.com, a lead trainer for the International HACCP Alliance.
Chapter 12, the Seafood HACCP Regulation, Title 21, 123. In this module you will learn the requirements of the regulation, how to reference the specific requirements. The regulation, Title 21, 123, is broken into three subparts: Subpart A, Subpart B, Subpart C, easily formatted to retrieve the information you're looking for. If you're looking for information on the HACCP plan, you would go to 123.6. If you're looking for the requirements for records, you would go to 123.9. Within the regulation, there's a specific section for the definitions of the terms that are quite frequently used within the regulation. Be sure to take time and learn all these definitions. It's very important you understand the terminology. 123.3 covers definitions. Let's look at a few important definitions, commonly used words throughout the regulation. Shall is commonly used and is used to state mandatory requirements of the regulation. Should is used to state recommended or advisory procedures or to identify recommended equipment. These are commonly used throughout the regulation. Understand, shall means you must do it. Should means it's recommended. It's very important that you understand the definition of fish. Fish means fresh or saltwater finfish, crustaceans, aquatic animal life, including alligators, frogs, and aquatic turtles, jellyfish, sea cucumbers, sea urchins, and roe, other than birds or mammals, and all mollusk, where such animal life is intended for human consumption. Note, it is very important to carefully read the definition of fish. Note that molluscan shellfish, are considered fish for the purposes of this regulation. And a fishery product is defined as human food product where fish is the characterizing ingredient, such as clam chowder or fish sauce. USDA regulations quite frequently use percentages to determine if it's a USDA food, like 2%, 3%. A fishery product is defined as a product where fish is the characterizing ingredient. Very important. So if you are defined as a processor, either foreign or domestic, you must comply with this regulation, Title 21, 123. So what is processing? Processing means handling, storing, preparing, heading, eviscerating, shucking, freezing, changing into different market forms, manufacturing, preserving, packing, labeling, dockside unloading, or holding fish or fishery products. This is the definition of processing for fish and fishery products. Title 21, 123 does not apply to the harvest or transport of fish and fishery products. Practices such as heading, eviscerating, or freezing intended solely to prepare the fish for holding on a harvest vessel, or the operation of a retail establishment. Retail establishments will be under the Retail Food Code or the Model Food Code, and transportation of fish and fishery products will be subject to the Sanitary Transportation of Food, and harvest and activities by fishermen are under separate regulations. To be in compliance with Title 21, Part 123, It's mandatory the operation is in compliance with Title 21, Part 117. These are the current good manufacturing practices. You can find those in the Code of Federal Regulations. Subpart B deals with personnel, operations, sanitary practices, things of that nature. Be sure to look at Subpart B. Proper practices of safe and sanitary handling of food are revealed within this regulation. It's useful for any food establishment, but required for fish and fishery products. Hazard analysis. 123.6a. Every processor shall conduct or have conducted for it a hazard analysis. Shall means you must conduct a hazard analysis. While conducting your hazard analysis, your job will be to determine hazards that are reasonably likely to occur. For those hazards, you're going to establish controls. If your hazard analysis reveals one or more food safety hazards, then you need a HACCP plan. 123.6b states, every processor shall have and implement a written HACCP plan whenever a hazard analysis reveals one or more food safety hazards that are reasonably likely to occur. The plan shall be specific to each processing location, and the plan shall be specific to each species of fish and fishery products. The plan may group types of fish and fishery products together if the hazards controls are the same. There are specific requirements for the HACCP plan itself. The HACCP plan shall list food safety hazards that are reasonably likely to occur, the CCPs, critical control points, the critical limits, the monitoring procedures, what, how, frequency, who. Predetermined corrective actions are recommended, the verification procedures or measures, and the records that will be maintained. On top of the required components of the plan, the HACCP plan shall be signed and dated. It shall be signed and dated by the most responsible individual at the processing facility or a higher level official. It shall be signed and dated upon initial acceptance, upon any modification, and at least annually. This is a verification requirement. The signature on the HACCP plan will never be more than a year old. Processors of acidified or low-acid canned foods do not need to include controls for Clostridium botulinum in their HACCP plan. That hazard will be controlled with other regulations, such as Title 21-113 or Title 21-114. It's best to have a freestanding sanitation program guided with SSOPs and, of course, sanitation monitoring documents. Sanitation controls may be difficult to manage in a HACCP plan. According to Title 21-123, it is unlawful to process food under conditions that may render it injurious to people's health. It's against the law to injure, sicken, or kill people with the foods you make. Remember, we're taking a look at Title 21-123, Fish and Fishery Products Regulations for HACCP. Whenever a deviation from a critical limit occurs, a processor shall take corrective action. Corrective action 123.7. There's going to be 3 parts to corrective action. Number 1, take care of the food. Number 2, restore the process. Number 3, be sure to document. There are multiple types of corrective actions. Well, there'll be those that are predetermined and those that aren't. So be sure to have some kind of policy or procedure to clarify to your staff what to do in a scenario when you do not have a predetermined corrective action, such as segregating and holding the product, determining the product's acceptability, applying a corrective action to the product and or process, and then at that point reassessing our HACCP plan to then consider that corrective action as perhaps a predetermined one. Every processor shall verify that the HACCP plan is adequate for their program, their food safety hazards that are reasonably likely to occur, and that the HACCP plan is controlling those hazards, and that the HACCP plan is being implemented effectively. There's two parts to HACCP: having the plan and implementing the plan, and every processor shall verify that's happening. There will be multiple verification activities going on at all times: daily, weekly, monthly, annual verification activities. Some of the activities are going to be things like consumer complaints, reviewing their records, calibration of monitoring instruments, making sure that everything is accurate and or calibrated, periodic in-testing or in-product testing. That's an option to verify that your processing methodologies are still working according to your validated processes. At a minimum, verification activities are record reviews. At a minimum, I got to say it again, verification activities are record reviews. There are many records required by the HACCP regulation. Some of the example records that are required are the HACCP plan. If your hazard analysis reveals more than one hazard, one or more hazard, or at least one hazard, then you're required to have a HACCP plan. If you have a HACCP plan, that means you have a critical control point. If you have a critical control point, that means you need monitoring records. That means you need corrective action records. That means you need verification validation records. To be in compliance with Title 21, 123, you need good sanitation. Therefore, you need sanitation control records or monitoring records and control records for sanitation elements. And if you're an importer, you would need import verifications or import verification records if we do not have an outstanding MOU with the country you're dealing with. There is specific information that's required on records. Are required to have things like name and location of the processor or importer, date and time of the activity being recorded, signature or initial of the person making the record, identify the product and production code, batch code, lot code where appropriate. One of the main activities a HACCP trained person does is reviewing records. We review records to look for trends or failures in our process. Review of records, CCP monitoring and corrective action records, shall be conducted within 1 week of when the record was made. Verification and in-process, in-product testing records, of course, will be in a timely manner, considering distribution, holding, this product until the records have been obtained. So how long do we have to keep our records? I say the longer the better, but there is a minimum requirement. Record retention: 1 year for refrigerated products and 2 years for frozen or preserved products. Consider additional time on top of that. So according to the regulation, a HACCP trained person, a person that completes a standardized HACCP course or has job experience, shall develop the HACCP plan, shall reassess and modify the HACCP plan and hazard analysis, and review HACCP records. Sanitation control procedures. Title 21, 123, 11 states processors should have written SCPs, sometimes called SSOPs. Those are not required in the seafood industry. However, processors shall or must monitor the sanitation within their facility and document sanitation controls. Processors shall correct sanitation deficiencies in a timely manner. Remember, there's 8 areas of sanitation. 8 key sanitation areas. Number 1, safety of water. Number 2, condition and cleanliness of food contact surfaces. Number 3, prevention of cross-contamination. Number 4, maintenance of hand washing, hand sanitizing, and toilet facilities. Number 5, protect the food packaging, and food contact surfaces from adulterants. Number 6, labeling, storage, and use of toxic chemicals and compounds. Number 7, employee health conditions. And number 8, exclusion of pests. You shall monitor and correct these 8 areas. Importer verification. It's a requirement under the Seafood HACCP regulation that we import food from countries with, number 1, a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, sometimes called a cooperative agreement, or number 2, implement written verification procedures. Importer verification procedures must have written procedures, product specifications, and an affirmative step. Product specifications include biological, chemical, and physical hazards identified for that product, and what has this foreign supplier done to control these hazards. An importer is required to select an affirmative step. An affirmative step may include any of the following: obtain foreign processors' HACCP and sanitation monitoring records for the lot being entered, obtain continuing lot-by-lot certificate from a competent third-party inspector, regularly inspect foreign processor, obtain foreign processor's HACCP plan and a written guarantee that the regulation is being met, periodically test product and obtain written guarantee that the regulation is being met, or perform other verification procedures that provide an equivalent level of assurance. Smoked and smoke-flavored fishery products are regulated by Title 21-123 as well. The HACCP plan must include controls for Clostridium botulinum toxin formation for the shelf life of the product under normal or moderate conditions. Some products, however, we may use other regulations to control that hazard, like Title 21-113 or Title 21-114. If that's the case, the HACCP plan need not include such controls. Title 21-123-20 covers raw molluscan shellfish. HACCP plans must indicate a means for controlling the origin of raw molluscan shellfish, where processing includes a treatment that ensures the destruction of vegetative cells of microorganisms of public health concern. The HACCP plan need not include controls on sources of origin. An effective way of tracking raw molluscan shellfish is shell stock identification tags. Title 21 1240 60B requires specific information on the tag: date and place shellfish were harvested, state and site, type and quantity of shellfish, harvester's identification number, name of harvester or name or registration number of harvester's vessel. Processors shall only process molluscan shellfish from growing waters approved by a shellfish control authority, federal growing waters not closed by an agency of the federal government. If source is a harvester, harvester must be in compliance with any license requirement. If source is another processor, processor must be certified by a shellfish control authority. Containers of shell stock must be properly tagged. Records for shell stock receiving must document date of harvest, location of harvest, state and site, quantity and type of shellfish, date of receipt by the processor, name of harvester, name or registration number of the harvest vessel or harvester's identification number. Shucked molluscan shellfish must bear a label that contains name of packer or repacker, address of packer or repacker, certification number of packer or repacker. Shucked shellfish are shellfish removed from their shell. Records for shucked product must document date of receipt, quantity and type of shellfish, name and certification number of packer or repacker. Seafood HACCP Regulation, Title 21, Part 123. I've attached a copy of the regulation for your review. I recommend you read it thoroughly. That concludes the lecture. Let's get back to work. Remember, you've been working on a practical exercise throughout the chapters. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. We left off at step 17 of the 18 steps to a HACCP plan. The 18 steps to a HACCP plan can be found in the Fish and Fishery Products Hazards and Controls Guide, Chapter 2. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Get your practice exercise. We are working on the HACCP plan. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Step 18. Sign the HACCP plan. The signature must be that of the most responsible individual on site, at your processing facility, or higher level official. This signature signifies the plan has been accepted for implementation by your firm. There's two parts to a HACCP plan: to have it and implement it.
18 steps to a HACCP plan. Complete and sign your HACCP plan. Remember, this will be submitted for class credit. Once you have completed your HACCP plan form, as well as your flowchart and hazard analysis worksheet, be sure to save it for submission to david@safefoodtest.com for credit. You have now completed the 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Great job.
This concludes Chapter 12. Please complete the following quiz before you go on to the last chapter.